So today we are going to talk about monitoring and evaluation in YEPP, and I will guide you through different steps of participatory YEPP monitoring evaluation design, which is called PYME in short. But first of all, let us think about why are we doing this, and why monitoring and evaluation play such an important role in YEPP. We can say that monitoring and evaluation are essential parts of the YEPP cycle of change, and without monitoring and evaluation there is no YEPP. YEPP cycle of change is based on continuous process of planning, analysis, action and reflection. And reflection is something which describes the essence of monitoring and evaluation if we do it all the time through different tools and methods. But why monitoring and evaluation? There are several purposes to conduct monitoring and evaluation. And the first one is that it just helps you to learn from experience. So knowing what went well and knowing what went wrong helps us to reflect on the process and the results and do the improved planning for the future. The other purpose is outcome assessment, and it tells us to what extent we have achieved our local objectives and what results do we have. The results help us to see the difference which we make to the YEPP local site, to the context, and also to wider society in which we operate. The next important thing is advocacy. So our monitoring and evaluation data can be used to disseminate the best practices, the learning outcomes and the results from the YEPP community network to advocate for the principles of youth participation, youth empowerment and community empowerment at the local, but also at the national, European and international level. And then another thing is that evaluation and monitoring provides accountability. If you have good data, you show it to the funders who know their value for money and know what their investment in the activities of YEPP has cost. And finally, last but not least, we regard our participatory monitoring evaluation design as the tool for empowerment of young people and communities through engagement in the process of planning, reflection, evaluation and making the improvements at each and every step. Evaluation helps to empower people if these people engage actively in every step of the cycle of change and take more ownership not only of their results but also of the initial planning. Now we are going to talk about the steps in the PYME design of YEPP. The first step is context. And context stands for the situation in the YEPP local site at the beginning of every cycle of change. The context is assessed through the situation analysis and provides the frame for monitoring and evaluation in the YEPP local site. The second step is inputs. Inputs are all the resources, material and non-material resources invested in your YEPP local site. And it means that it is important for us to understand and to know what is there available, what sort of expertise, skills, languages exist within the local team, within the local site, and what material resources are also there to help you to conduct your activities. We mean by this buildings, meeting places, some equipment. Might be video equipment if you want to do some video work, or all possible kinds of other equipment. So that was inputs. And the next step is process. Process is about functioning of structures and about communication and social relationships in the local support group, in the YEPP local team, and process also stands for assessing the implementation of your operational plan and your activities. So we can also monitor and evaluate the processes. If we monitor the process, we mean that we assess the implementation of our activities. And if we evaluate the process, it means that we look at the changes which these activities have caused in our local context. And the next step is outputs. Outputs are direct and immediate results of projects and actions, and outputs relate to specific project objectives. And the next step is outcomes. Outcomes are changes in the intervention context at all levels, at all possible levels to which your activities in your YEPP local sites might have contributed. And outcomes also relate to the achievement of overall YEPP goals. And as we know, there are 5 of them: youth empowerment, community empowerment, partnership, advocacy, and learning. And finally, the final step in the PYME design is impact. Impact stands for long-term changes in the YEPP local site and in the wider society to which the activities might have contributed. Certainly, it is quite difficult to talk about assessing the impact, because it could be everything which made an impact on certain things, on certain changes, positive or negative changes in your YEPP local site. Therefore, there are tools which were designed to help you move through each step of the PYME design. When we talk about the terms of PYME, it is also necessary to explain what we mean by goals and objectives. And in our definition and in our glossary of terms, we understand objectives as something which helps you to define the steps you need to take to achieve the goal. So objectives are some very concrete steps, and they result from a situation analysis, and they are more specific than goals. Ideally, objectives should be SMART, which means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. When we talk about the goals, we define the goals as something what an organization or the project wants to achieve overall. So goals are quite general and provide the frame of reference for the definition of specific objectives. How it works in YEPP is that normally you have the objectives in your operational plans, which relate to YEPP overall goals, which are 5: youth empowerment, community empowerment, partnership, advocacy, and learning. When we look at the graph of PYME design in steps, we see different arrows. And these arrows help us to understand that everything is connected and everything is related to each other. So, for example, the general situation in a YEPP local site, which is context, and the available resources, which is inputs, influence the planning and implementation of the local projects and activities, which is process. And then the implementation process determines the short-term results, which are outputs, and also medium-term effects, which we call outcomes of these projects and activities. And in turn, outputs and outcomes have an influence on how later projects and activities will be planned and implemented in the next cycle of change. So, in line with the PYME is also the YEPP cycle of change, which you can link. And there is a certain order for how to carry out monitoring and evaluation. So before you plan projects and activities, you assess the local context through a situation analysis. Then during the implementation of YEPP projects and activities, you constantly monitor inputs and process. Once a particular project or activity is finished, you assess the outputs, that is short-term results, and once a year, normally, we identify the outcomes. And the outcomes stand for assessing the difference the local activities have made to young people and their communities. The outcomes also relate to assessing the YEPP overall goals. Outcomes relate to assessing the YEPP overall goals, where we can better understand what impact is there for the goals of youth empowerment, community empowerment, partnership, advocacy, and learning. And finally, after some time, normally after 3 or 5 years, we can also assess the impact of YEPP at the local level. And when we assess the impact of YEPP at the local level, we also think about changes which our activities have caused in the wider society using specific tools and methods of PYME design.